The Republican presidential primary is now underway. 8 GOP candidates faced off in the first debate of the 2024 primary season. Lee Hanna, professor of political science at Wright State University, joins us now to break down the debate. And Lee, we appreciate you stopping by and joining us today. One big face noticeably not on the stage was Donald Trump last night. These 8 candidates are trying to break through, make some noise of their own. Did any of them stand out?
Yeah, so I think that the one that people came into probably not knowing who they're going to be looking up in the next few days is Vivek Ramaswamy. And he early on, I think, came out with a lot of energy and was kind of interesting in his point of view. He really kind of got beat up in the second half of the debate, especially on his foreign policy views. In political science, we talk about these early primaries where there's often kind of a surge for these candidates, but then the scrutiny comes. The media starts to pay more attention to them, voters dial in, and then often there's a decline. And we could think of someone like Herman Cain from a few years ago, even Howard Dean, if you go way back to 2004, where these candidates come out and there's something unique and different and maybe exciting. But then the scrutiny, the pressure often leads to either mistakes by the candidate or parts of their history that are unfamiliar. And so it'll be interesting to see how Ramaswamy, if he can really maintain this momentum he has. And then I would say that Mike Pence and Nikki Haley probably did the most good for themselves last night. I believe Pence probably has a ceiling of support amongst the GOP. Maybe Haley is an interesting alternative. Maybe she's someone that they, come behind as kind of the alternative to Trump. But, it's hard to know if it will really move the needle in a substantial way.
Today, Trump is expected to surrender to the Fulton County jail on those charges down in Georgia. And yet, yesterday during the debate, he left the debate, even though he wasn't there, relatively unscathed. Do you think that eventually some of these competitors will target him?
You would think that they have to at some point. And I do think that Haley made a pretty strong case for electability, arguing that, Trump has lost some of these high profile races. Some of his endorsements have lost. There's certainly a desire to move on from people up on the stage. But what they really seem leery to do is to criticize him on kind of the facts and the merits of these indictments. And part of that is because the polling shows that more people have rallied behind Trump from the Republican base than turned against him. So they're in a precarious situation. And, Haley, in some ways, kept articulating this general election view. But, of course, you have to get through the primary first. And the primary still seems to be, the primary electorate seems to be strongly behind Trump at the moment. And these indictments, just as much as they're stacking up, at least in polling, they don't seem to be catching up to the president yet. As we get into more fact finding and more reporting, perhaps something becomes, he takes on too much water with just a series of these legal issues, but we haven't seen it yet.
Former President Trump is taking an incumbents approach to the debates and deciding not to debate the competitors. He did some counter-programming yesterday on X with Tucker Carlson. Do you think this is a good strategy for him, or do you think it's more just playing continually to his base at this point?
Honestly, I think it's a smart strategy because the biggest liability he could have is someone getting to stand beside him and really go after him. Tucker Carlson's not going to do that. Anybody in just an audience that he's kind of controlled is probably supportive of him. The occasional protester gets whisked away. And so really the only opportunity to really be able to stand shoulder to shoulder to this guy and call him out and attack him directly is on a debate stage. And they're aware of that. That would be the biggest liability for him to really stumble. And so they're avoiding it at the moment. If the polls tighten and there's a sense that there's pressure for him to do that, then perhaps he will show up at one of these debate stages. But I think it's probably bad for us as viewers who want to assess each candidate. But as far as his strategy goes, it's very sensible.
Dr. Lee Hanna, as always, we appreciate you stopping by. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more in the coming months.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan.